Hello, everybody. Keith Engle again for TGI Sports Talks one-on-one with Keith Engle. My guest tonight will be former NFL All-Pro running back Delvin Williams. Delvin's also got a new book out called The Fifth Ward to the Fourth Quarter, Football's Impact on an NFL Player's Body and Soul. You can get that on Amazon, and I'm sure a bunch of other outlets, and we'll talk about that. Delvin's got a great story that we're going to get into tonight. We'll talk about his career. We'll also talk about the suit that he's in against the NFL for many, many, many years, and why that's come about and where he stands now. And it's an incredible story, and we'll get into it here right now as I bring in former NFL running back Delvin Williams. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon at Delvin, depending on what people see.
Thank you, Keith. Good evening here. Good afternoon, rather.
Good afternoon to you. Good evening to me, and good whatever to whenever people are seeing this. So I appreciate you being here with me today, and I hope everything's going well there in California. We're in upstate New York, so it's a little different weather-wise, but we're getting into that.
Well, it's sunshine, blue skies here today.
Good. What part of California are you in again?
I'm in Auburn, California. It's between Reno and Sacramento.
Okay.
Probably, I've been here since I've been here for 3 years now. I moved from the Bay Area to got married and had to get out of the Bay Area.
Well, congratulations.
And I moved to Auburn. I've been here 3 years now, so it's a nice place.
Great. Well, we want to get into certainly your whole story today, Delvin, and certainly promote your book a little bit and talk about your story before and how we got to where we are today. When you were growing up, and you grew up, if I'm not mistaken, in I'm mistaken, in Texas. Houston, Texas. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what it was like growing up in your neighborhood.
Well, it was in those times, in the mid 60s, I was born in 51, in the late 50s and early 60s. We were still in the segregated times there, and I lived with my mother was 16 years old when I was born, and she was the baby in the family. So my grandparents took me, and I lived with them most of my life until I went to high school. I could have gone back with my mother, but I didn't want to go. I enjoyed spending time with my grandparents. They spoiled me, and I didn't realize how much I would miss them until they were gone. Because some of the old time philosophy and different things, we used to laugh a lot. So it was a good time, but it was in times where it was really tough and difficult in the South, and but we didn't know any different. We were playing in our neighborhoods and doing all the things that young kids would do, and watching NFL games on Sunday and playing in the neighborhood, and so I just sitting there on Sundays watching football and watching grown men playing the game of football and getting paid to play. I said, wow, that would be interesting. But never had any idea. You never think you'd get there.
What it's interesting you bring up your grandparents and the influence they were. I'm sure we had very different upbringings, you and I, because I didn't grow up on the mean streets of any place. I can tell you that. But I spent a lot of time with my grandparents because my mother was a single mom, and they were as big an influence as my parents were in my life, and I miss them as much as I miss my mom, for crying out.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think I miss my grandmother more than my parents and grandparents. And it was almost like my mother was a big sister to me, so to speak, because she would come over and I'd friends with her, but I wanted to go back home to my grandmother. And once my grandmother wouldn't let her whip me one night, and I just thought that was the greatest thing. She was gonna whip me. I did something to my brother, and I ran and jumped in. They lived next door to each other, so I ran and got into bed. And my grandma said, "Just go get in bed. Go get in bed." So about 2 minutes later, I could hear her coming up the stairs. Where is he? He's asleep. She said, "No, he's not." I just sent him home. He's not asleep. Yes, let him sleep. And I was under the cover smiling. I said, "I know she loves me."
That's cool.
So those times were what you really missed. And she passed when I was in college, and it really hit me hard because I didn't realize the impact she had on me,
Yeah.
and the fact that she didn't really get to see the fruits of what she had planted come to fruition. Yeah.
Well, I think she probably has seen it. She just hasn't been able to, tell you that she
Oh
has.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
one day you'll have that conversation, right? So as you're growing up and getting into your high school years, you went to an all black school in Houston, right? Kashmir, am I saying that right?
Uh-huh.
Kashmir.
Yes. 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 Cashmere Rams.
What were you? What drove you towards sports? Did you play other sports besides football? And who were your influences in this?
Well, in the growing up and in the neighborhood, in tough neighborhoods, sometimes you want to hang out with guys that are older and you're around those guys, but you're younger, and so what do? You got to do something to be there with them, and
Right.
but it's one of the things that I did. I was fast as a kid, and I liked playing football, and the older guys would come and watch us play, and one day I ran a touchdown, put a move on an older guy, and scored. And I could hear. Oh, I didn't look at him, but I could hear on my way back. He said, "Damn, he's good." And and that stuck with me. It was the first time somebody had said I could do something well. I'd gotten in a lot of trouble, at home. Not really a lot, a major thing, but just mischief. But now this was something that I could do. And I started playing basketball and football, in the neighborhoods. And it became a challenge to me because what we were really doing was defining ourselves as men.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know it. You have to find your place in the neighborhood, in the pecking order of the neighborhood, in family and parents and friends. You got to be a man. You got to be a man. But nobody really teaches you what a man is and how to be a man. You learn it on your own. And so sports became part of that identity.
When did you think that maybe this was something that you could do at a higher level? Moving on to obviously Division I football at Kansas. When did you think that was going to be something you could do?
Well, it was always a dream, but I was very realistic about it. Meaning of what it was going to take. Because I didn't realize it, but I was I didn't find out till the '90s that I'm dyslexic and I have ADHD and I have sleep apnea. So I had all these things growing up, and I was always falling asleep and tired. And then in elementary school, I flunked the fourth grade with all Fs. And it was devastating, because
Wow.
I just couldn't read. But you start to try to find a way to get through these things. And I had to go to summer school, and that was a bummer in the fourth grade. But I really didn't want to. How should I say? Well, no one wants to flunk in school. However, to play football, you had to have good grades. You have to have
Sure.
maintain a good GPA. So I didn't. I tried in seventh grade and eighth grade. I didn't get a uniform. I was too small. In the seventh grade, I weighed 97 pounds.
Wow.
Coach told me, "You're too small, son." So and I was really upset because I thought I could play. But then I came back, and in my senior year in high school, I finally got a uniform and almost made the varsity. And but at one point, it was just playing football because it was a thing to do in high school. It was a camaraderie with the teammates. We walk into a ready-made family in football, and coaches were like parents, and and,
Yeah.
and and you had a sense of, how should I say it? There was this group consciousness about the team and all the things that came with it. And but you would see older guys, college scouts coming to school, some of them getting scholarship offers, and you wonder, wow, that would be great to go to. But always in the back of my mind was my academic shortcomings. And so I had a pretty good year my junior year, and my senior year we had 15 lettermen coming back, and teams in Beaumont where Bubba Smith and Miller and Mel Farr and a lot of those guys went to school. Coaches used to tell us, if you could go down there and come out with a victory, you've done something. And one of our first games was with those two teams, And we beat Charleston Pollard the first game of the season my senior year, 25-0. I had 294 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. And I didn't realize, I'm just, hey, I'm part of the team. We're just having fun. And as it started to the dominoes started to fall, it just started to get better and better. And and I was always fast, and I ran track, and I was 195, 185 in high school. And these things are happening, but it's kind of like you don't want to lose touch with reality, and in terms of your teammates and neighborhood and so forth. And so I was always a team guy. And so my track coach was a huge influence on me. I didn't want to run track, but he said, if you don't play football, you got to run track. But it's one of the best things I did. I had an opportunity to do, and we bonded. He was almost like a father to me. And so it just kind of took off from there. And I made high school All-American. And I had no idea that would happen. And so all of a sudden, all these things just kind of like boom, dropped on me, and it was very stressful at some point because what do? How you make a choice? I had lots of scholarship offers, and so I chose to go to Kansas because they hired my high school coach out of high school, but something I learned from that experience. I know going into the senior year in camp, he asked me if I wanted to go to a Houston Oilers football game and see the Oilers in Chicago Bears. Of course, I was a Gale Sayers fan, and I said, sure, I'm going to go. However, head coaches are always close to their quarterbacks, So right. I asked myself, well, why is he asking me? I mean, I don't. He should ask the quarterback, but I'm going to go. And so I did. But come to find out, fast forward in my senior year, my first trip I took was to Kansas, but the owner of the Houston Oilers was a Kansas alumni.
Bud Adams, yeah.
And he hired my coach. He hired my head coach. So you start to see all of those things creep in, and it got to be more than about the game of football.
What other schools were after Delvin Williams at that time?
I took a trip to UCLA, Nebraska. I went to Oklahoma. They and now when I look back, they were limiting my trips, the coaches, and because of track, and I was a sprinter. I ran 9.5 in high school, and so but yeah, I kind of had decided he's going there, so I guess that'd be the place to go. And after my freshman year, but anyway, I went to Kansas. Because they hired him.
Well, if Gale Sayers was was one of your heroes, that's a great place to go, obviously, because that's where he went.
That's right. And I tell people this is that I got the first and only Gale Sayers Scholarship Award.
That was the only one. What did they?
The first and only one. But it's a great school. I'm glad I went there. I met Gale. He came back. He wanted to be a GM, and he came back as assistant athletic director there in Kansas, and was a good guy. So that was a great experience. But I was academically ineligible my freshman year, and had to work and pay my way through school the 4 year, my first year to get my grades up, and I ended up graduating in 4 years.
That was going to be my question as you were talking about your dyslexia and the ADHD. How did you manage to graduate in 4 years at a major college with that type of handicap?
Well, the thing, I worked at it. When they told me I was academically ineligible, I had three options. I had to go to either I'd go to junior college, get my grades up. I could stay there and work and go to school, or go home. And to me, it wasn't only one. It was only one choice. It was to stay there and work through it. I didn't know how I would do, but I went to the assistant athletic director told me, he says, and I didn't even know I had a ADD or any of that at the time. Assistant athletic director, he said, Delvin, I'll tell you, he says, I'm going to give you two pieces of advice. And if you do these, you can get through this. He says, first, go to class. He says, no, whatever you do, go to class. And if it comes to a point where you don't understand, don't wait too long. Ask the instructor if you could see him and if he can help you get through it. And Keith, I did that. I went to 7:30 classes. I did everything. I'm falling asleep in class. Sleep looking the instructor in the eye once, and I couldn't believe it. And I had to talk to her after and said, "Look, I don't know what's wrong with me," and that was the sleep apnea. So when I got my grades up that freshman year, I flunked one course, but when I got my grades up, I said, I can do this. You know, I can do this if I with tutors and with help. I can do this. I didn't, you know, the first year I couldn't, and in high school, but now it meant something. You know, education meant something. You know, it was great to. But now, I'll go to college, all this. But now here I am. I got a line in the sand now, and it was all on my back and nobody else. And I just drove forward, straight ahead, and it surprised me when I was before I knew it. My senior year, I was student teaching.
Really?
It was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
What'd you get your degree in, by the way? What was your major?
In biological science minor.
Geez, well, you didn't.
I had to take chemistry. That almost kept me from graduating. Chemistry, biology 2, physiology of exercise, kinesiology, all of those things, because I had to have them for a PE major too.
Yeah.
So that made the minor a little bit simpler, if you will.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, in Kansas, obviously they were not doing really well in football in those days. Was there any regrets ever to going to Kansas and not going somewhere where you would have been?
No. Talk about my school.
No. No disrespect.
You know, they the year before we got there, it was a big exodus of Texas high school athletes leaving Texas, going to different schools out of the state. At that time, you know, couldn't go to white schools. Well, you could, but you probably wouldn't play and so forth. And at that time, there's Cliff Branch, Charlie Davis, J.V. Kane, and someone else went to Colorado. Greg Pruitt, Joe Washington,
Oklahoma.
A couple of other guys, Billy Brooks. Some of them went to Oklahoma. Myself, Don Good, Robert Miller, went to Kansas. We all got drafted. So Kansas was my choice because they had gone to Orange Bowl 2 years before we got there,
right?
And kind of was now rebuilding. And when by the time my senior year came, we were, of course, at that time the Big 8 was the best conference in America. I mean, between Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Colorado, finished 1, 2, 3 in the nation.
Yeah.
And we finished 16th in the nation my senior year at 7-4. And so it was a good year. How can I not feel that way after graduating and then getting drafted and doing those things that I did? It was just a great school.
So that's a great point. I mean, you finished 16th in the country. Did you even go to a bowl game that year?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And here's the other kicker, Keith. I mean, there was 8 teams in the conference, and sometimes four would go to bowl games out of 8. And then that's when they had real bowl games.
Oh, yeah, you didn't have 40 games, right? I mean, geez.
Yeah. Now they got all kinds of bowl games, but between Oklahoma, Nebraska, Colorado, and ourselves and Missouri, we were always battling for bowl, and Iowa State at one point.
Yeah. So you feel like if Kansas was in a different league, you guys would have been like a much better record. I won't say better team.
Well, yeah, I think yes, and here's what we were able to get some guys from other states and other parts of the country, but they were limited as to how many out-of-state scholarships they could give out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a limitation that was built into it. But they had some good guys, and I think but other people have asked me that. I don't know. I can't say anywhere else would have been better, given how it all turned out for me.
Who are some of the players that maybe we don't know about from those Kansas teams that that you played with that you enjoyed that time with?
Well, it was my roommate was Don Good. Don went to San Diego. We're still good friends today.
Yeah.
He was drafted in the first round, number 15. JV Kane and he went to the same high school. So JV was drafted number 5 overall, and he was taken 15 in the first round. I went in the second. I was a little upset, but you know, be that as it may, Cliff Branch was from Houston. Had gone to Colorado. We played against Kurt Knopf was our free safety at Kansas. Went to LA, I think, went to the Rams, and Nolan Cromwell was there. I was a year ahead of him. Robert Miller, who played halfback, a fullback on our team, was from Houston, and Robert went to Minnesota. But Robert won the city championship that year, our senior year, because I'd hurt my ankle. I missed 2 games. But so there was a lot of Texas players around.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly been a breeding ground for NFL football players for a lot of years, Texas. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, a lot of guys.
You just mentioned you were. Did you think you were going to be a first round draft pick? You mentioned you were disappointed.
I did. Here's what happened. We were in the Liberty Bowl, and I got speared in the back, and I didn't finish the game in the third quarter, and I cracked the transverse process in my back. I came out to the East-West Shrine game here. I had to leave. I was supposed to play in the Senior Bowl, and I couldn't go. That was the one I really wanted to play because they paid you. The other bowl games, they didn't pay you. So I missed those bowl games, and I thought for sure I didn't know what was going to happen, because at home during the holidays, I was convalescing with my back, and I talked to the trainers and so forth at school. And they reassured me that I would be fine. It'll heal and I will be fine. But that's what they said, and you don't think that way. I had run a 4.19, 4.2 flat 40 for the scouts a couple of times. So out of speed, and I finished second in the Big 8 in receiving. Mm-hmm. Because Big 8 was a running conference. The teams had wishbone, and we were a passing team with David James. We had 5 players in the top 10 in receiving in the conference that year. So I had a pretty good year, and so I was. We had a scout that came by to tell us as well. He was a scout for 4 teams as a combine he scouted for, and he says, one of my teams are going to draft you guys, and he says, I'm going to come pick you up in the morning. This was before ESPN. Yeah. So he's going to come pick us up, and of course I wanted to spend the night because we could get a steak, and Don didn't want to spend the night, so we went back to the hotel, and so he scouted for Dallas, the Rams, San Diego, and the 49ers. And one of his teams was going to draft us high. And you hear that all the time, but they all had high draft choices in the first 3 or 4 rounds. And so San Diego and San Francisco had 2 first rounds, 2 second rounds. And Don went number 15 to San Diego, and then he left me in the room there by myself. and so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, so now the second round, the first round is passed. I'm a little upset because I thought I would go to one of the teams. So now the second round's gone, I'm getting nervous. And so the 49ers called, and they took me 49th overall, and I could exhale.
Were you happy with going to the West Coast?
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, it hits you so fast. You're trying to process it all overnight. This is what you've been striving for all your life, hoping for, and now overnight, here it is. And what will you do? So many things to think about. Attorneys, money, taxes, family, all these things just kind of running through your head. And then it wasn't that much money at that time. I think my signing bonus was $40,000, and my first year contract was $30,000. So, but it was good money in those days.
Right. Right.
And so I don't envy the guys today. I mean, get as much as you can. They're in a good time now.
Yeah.
So it was a little nerve wracking, but I always wanted to come to the West Coast because I had hamstring problems, and I didn't want to go somewhere where I couldn't get loose and like pull muscles and so forth.
Yeah.
So when San Francisco drafted me, that was great.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned going to Kansas, and they'd been to an Orange Bowl a few seasons before, and were kind of rebuilding. The 49ers had been a pretty strong team in NFC Championship games, and they were kind of in rebuilding mode when you got there.
Exactly. I mean, I and here's the strange thing about it. I was a Cowboy fan. I grew up a Cowboy fan, and I would watch all those games, and so now it's some of the names you remember when I got there, but now here I am on the team, and so it was a real juxtaposition, but it didn't take long to get over that. But they were going through a rebuilding process when they drafted us, and they drafted about 5 backs in that year.
Oh yeah. Well, I know you played. I don't know if I want to say sparingly, but you played behind Wilbur Jackson, and Larry Schreiber, I think, was the fullback, right?
Wilbur was drafted. He was the first player they chose with San Francisco, and Bill Sanderford was the defensive lineman. Then Keith Farnhurst and me. Of course, Wilbur, first round draft choice, he's gonna play.
Right.
Now, the funny thing about it, though, my first game as a pro against San Diego, against my teammate, I was starting because Wilbur hurt himself. I broke my wrist.
Oh, geez.
My first game as a pro, I broke my wrist. And and that was, if it wasn't one thing, it's two, always something. And so now I don't know what to expect. You're a second round choice, but you don't know. They might. So after 2 weeks, after a week or so in camp, they put a cast on, and they took the cast off and put a. And so, before Dick Nolan came up to me once, and he says, "When are you going to take that thing off?" And I looked at him like he stole something from me. So what did you take what off? He said, "Take that cast off." He said, "You can play with a broken wrist." And so that was a point of no return. Now you're not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
Was kind of a harbinger of things to come as far as what was expected. Yeah.
Yes, it was. I mean, and it was my right wrist, the one I carried the ball in, and so now you're really upset. But I was, it was good and bad with that. I was thankful that I had that year to play because I could get indoctrinated. I was playing special teams, and I came in on some plays in the offense, catch the ball. But I fumbled once against the Raiders, I think, down the goal line. I had a 71-yard run for a touchdown. Then I come back two series or 3 series later, I fumbled, and they got a touchdown. They beat us. And I came to the sideline, and Dick Nolan said, "You got to hold on the ball." I said to him, "My wrist is broken, man." And so all of those types of things, you're starting to go through, and you have to play hurt. You're watching veterans play hurt. Guys are getting their knees drained, and if you're not going to do it, you'll find somebody that will.
That's true, and that's still even true today. I think for sure, there's always somebody waiting in line for your job, right? Well,
yeah, and I'm not saying. I mean, you hear people talk about they're cheating or they're taking drugs. You got to be out of your mind because they're cheating. You're playing with all this pain. What do you think they're doing it with? On sheer will?
Yeah.
So I don't know why it's such this big bugaboo about having to use medication to play, because you're gonna get hurt. There's no way of getting around it. You're gonna get hurt. I had 6 surgeries when I played. I've had 18 in retirement. And somebody you try to tell me about medication and drugs, I'm gonna say go fly a kite. You know, so it's part of the game.
Yeah.
You know, and people may not want to. I mean, did you see the Super Bowl? Mahomes hurt his ankle, and he was
Yeah.
hobbling. And when he came back out in the second half, it was like he was playing brand new as a spring chicken.
Sure, he
Well,
wasn't feeling much there, right? So
yeah. So and there's also the message is convoluted in a sense when you do that because it when I first had my hip replaced, I had a doctor tell me, he says, I want you to take, make sure you use the pain meds because don't worry about getting addicted to it. He says, we'll control it. I said, don't worry about that. And he said, because if he says, you cannot heal if you're in pain. The first time somebody ever said that to me, he said, you cannot heal if you're in pain. And he was right. And I had 8 surgeries on this wrist. I played with it broken. And so from that point on, I go back to the hip, but starting back to playing, you're playing with all kinds of pain, with all kinds of things going on. And this whole machismo piece come up. Oh, you got to do this, or somebody gonna take your job. And they threaten you with it. We'll get somebody else to do it if you can't. You don't think you can. And so it becomes it's not the game. The game I played as a professional was not the game I saw as a kid.
yeah.
And they're just totally different. And anybody that think it's going to be that way, they're in for a whole nother a world of surprises about it. Now there were there were great moments playing, and the things of why you played the game. I remember having the most emotional high I ever had in football. I almost didn't think I could go on the kickoff to go out on the field afterwards because we were getting ready. When I was in Miami, we were playing the Dolphins. I mean, we were playing the Cowboys rather, and it was Don Shula against Tom Landry. And they talked about the Super Bowl victors. It was I was leading the league in rushing at that time, and then they had Tony Dorsett and Bob Greasy, Roger Staubach. And so all week long, it was an afternoon game, and all week long, it was all over the airwaves of how big the game was. And so it was one of those that when one of those games, you did not need somebody to get you up to play. You knew what was at stake, and we both were playing for positions in our division. And when we came out on the field, it was just a beautiful day. My mother was at the game. It was the first time she'd seen me play in Miami. And it was a beautiful day. It was a 4:00 game, and the announcer started to call the Cowboys, and those guys started running out, and people were booing. And then all of a sudden he said, "Then now, ladies and gentlemen, your Miami Dolphins," and that's the last. And I couldn't hear myself think. And I just had this chill that just ran through my whole body, and I'm running up and down the sideline. That had never happened again. And so that was but you have those moments. You have the lowest moments in your life.
Yeah.
Playing. I mean, playing hurt. Fumble the ball or lose a game. Didn't do what you were supposed to. And it's not something you can just turn your head and get away from because you're going to see it on the film.
Yeah.
The next.
What was it like? I mean, from moving from San Francisco, where there wasn't a lot of success on the field team wise. You had some, obviously. You broke out in your 3rd season, made some Pro Bowls. But other than, I think, one year with Monty Clark as a coach, you guys got off to a great start, didn't make the playoffs.
Oh, yes.
What happened there, by the way? The team was like, season 1, right?
It's really, and I didn't find out. Well, my I don't want to say reason. My reason of what I've come to understand may have happened to us is that we had some great players on the team. It wasn't like we had young guys and rookie team. Money came in and just turned that whole team around.
Yeah.
Brought in a belief system of the system he put in. Guys were ready to play. They wanted to play for him. We started out 6-1, and he put both Wilbur and I in the backfield together. Wilbur and I had been playing behind one another. Now we're both in the backfield. He gave us this sense of wanting, putting us in positions to really win, doing the right things, and even bringing the camp back to the Bay Area. So just a lot of things were, and so we started to play, and it was just really going well. Then we went to St. Louis at that time, the St. Louis Cardinals, and we lost in overtime. It was 2020. I set the record for most yards and most carries that game, and 3 touchdowns, and we lost. And that was a big game. There was their offensive line was Dobler, Banks, Deardoff, that crew, and we had Tommy Hart, Cedric, Cleveland Elam, Jimmy Webb. So it was just all around good game, and we lost, and we were really down. And the next week we had the Redskins coming to us with John Riggins with the Kansas and that whole crew at that time with George Allen, Theismann, and we lost. I had 180 yards rushing, 90 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns, and we lost 24-21. And from that point, Keith, we went into a tailspin. Mm-hmm. And what now I look at it, what was happening, we were young in victories. This was all new for us. And not for me, for most of the young guys over there, right. A lot of Jimmy Johnson, a lot of the great players are going through. But we were emotionally drained. You cannot call on the adrenaline, epinephrine, and serotonin week in, week out on that crescendo. And we didn't know, we hadn't been there. We didn't know what it took to come back and play with that. There's a difference in Miami with Chula.
Yeah.
And so, and we would look around at each other, holding each other, but you just couldn't get there because you're just drained. And it was another week to kind of get up that hill. And before we knew it, we were 6-5. And Miami, Minnesota was coming to town. They'd already clinched the division, and Plunkett was hurt. And we had a rookie quarterback that was going to start, and all week long we had planned just run the ball. We're just going to run it because Money was the offensive line coach when they beat Minnesota in the Super Bowl, and they ran the ball all day. So, and plus you had the veteran guys over in Minnesota. Oh, we clinched, We ended up. I went over 1,000 yards that night. Both of us rushed for over 150 yards. In the game, it was we were the third set of backs to do that in the history of NFL. I went over 1,000. It was magnificent. So we ended up though being 8-6. We lost in overtime to San Diego the next week, but it was and we were excited about the next year coming, and that's when they fired Money.
Yeah. Very short leash there for Monty Clark, that's for sure. But what was it like? So were you unhappy when you were traded and moved to Miami? You're going to a much better situation.
I was angry, but this is the business side of it. You heard a lot of talk. Some of the reporters they want to make this trade for OJ, and then they were asking me what did I think about it. I can't do anything about it. But I said well, who's gonna block? Because you got to have a fullback. Both of us were halfbacks, so I knew the writing was on the wall, and I just had 2 great seasons. And I just bought a house, the house that I wanted. And now Joe, he's the one that got Money fired. So we started. A lot of the players were leaving. We got to start seeing the white writing on the wall. But he sent me to a good place. If I had to go anywhere, I was happy to go to Miami because I just walked right in. And I knew the system because Money was there, and you just walk right in. And supposedly all they were missing was a running back, And I said, whoa. I'm coming in to be a part of this. I'm not coming in to be no savior,
Right.
And as fate would have it, things went really well for me that year, and except for towards the end, I had torn the bicep muscle in camp. I was hurting my neck, and then my knee was bothering me. So I was carrying 20. That was during the time you had to carry 20, 25 times a game.
Yeah.
Now these guys, I look at it, which is okay. I think they're doing the right thing today. If you get tired, raise your hand, come out, get somebody in there for a couple of plays, and then you go back. If you did that in Miami, no, you wouldn't play. So, but it was great playing for Coach Shula. I had a lot of respect for him. I learned more about football there than I'd learned. I mean, once we had a 3-a-day practice, and I was thinking, I said, Jesus.
3-a-day?
Yeah, and I'd heard about it. So now he told us in the morning. So now we'd go to 2-a-days, and then after dinner, you drag and then go back out there. But we went out in shorts and T-shirts, and it was the best practice because we did walkthroughs, and you could see the blocks. You could see where guys had to make their blocks. You could see if we were playing Minnesota and Alan Page was coming on certain, you could see who had to block him, what he had to do. And it was really good, and I wanted to do more of those because it helps you sometimes not to really see the whole, but see the color, seeing the colors of the jerseys of where your guys there or not, So it was good, and it was the downfall there is I didn't know it at that point, but I had sleep apnea, and I'd always had sleeping problems. And I told him, I said, look, I'm not going to deny my nighttime activities, but I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just tired all the time. I'd always been like that. My college roommate would wake me up in the middle of the night with his pillow. He couldn't sleep. I had my girlfriend and Zucker told me once, he says, I woke up and said, well, could you sleep in? He said, Delvin, he said, I didn't know if I should wake you up because you're gonna die in your sleep, or because you were snoring, or you were gonna die in your sleep because you stopped breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time in my life I took it serious because I had no idea what it was. And after I was tested for it, I was having 74 episodes of apnea per hour.
Wow.
My oxygen saturation was down to 62%. And I didn't know, and that's why I was always tired. I was always tired.
You're probably lucky that tired is all it was. I mean, Reggie White, isn't that what? Or
he died. That's what I understand. He died from
right?
sleep apnea. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And I've had several surgeries for it over the years.
Interesting. So 78, you had a great year. Would you say 78, 76 was probably your best year? I know you were all first.
They were the best. They were the best too. I would say 76 because it all just unfolded, that way. It all just happened. It wasn't an expectation. We expected to win and do well, and we knew, it's one of those coming into the season. You got the pieces, but you haven't been able to put them together and play. But as it started, we led the NFC in rushing through preseason that year. So we were getting the signs that things were, and we did well. And Monty, after the Pro Bowl, I was at camp once, and Monty says, we were talking about, he said, we haven't begun to do the things on the ground that we can do. And, and I just got excited again. And then probably 2-3 months later, his whole, and that's a drain on you. And then when Joe came in, I was negotiating a new contract, and he screwed me. It's kind of, and you also start to learn how much that things affect you emotionally.
Yeah.
They tell you it's a game, like Matuzak said in North Carolina's 40. Anytime we say it's a game, you say it's a business. When we say it's a business, you say it's a game. and that was exactly what was happening, because from the time we started playing football, we played because of the camaraderie of it, for the game of it. And also is for, I will bet you that if it wasn't for the manhood part of it, we probably wouldn't have played, because this is how you start to define yourself, I mean, meeting challenges and dealing with those, all playing hurt. Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you play with broken ribs? Why would you do that? it was something in it that kept you there. Pride, teammates, family, all of that stuff. And even though internally you knew you were taking a lot of stuff, you didn't. It was hard to deal with, but you kept pushing through it. And the teams themselves will, at the end, will screw you when they leave you, let you go, and not give you medical. I left football and didn't have any insurance.
Yeah.
And I'd had 6 surgeries while I was playing.
And we're going to go right there now. But before I go there, as your career, you got past that year, you started to, I don't want to say you lost your ability. You didn't. Did you lose your love for the game at all because of the injuries and the business side of it?
Do. Keith, you do. And in love for it and love in high school, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
A camaraderie and something that you do well, you pursue. And you get immediate gratification from it. You get you have your social group that you're with, and it's something just like a lawyer or someone else that does this well. They continue to practice their craft, but we have a limit on how long we can do it, and you have you're up against an endless flow of supply side, and so you can feel it. You can feel it coming, and they threaten you all the time. Well, they're bringing guys in all the time, and position. So you take the shots, you do the things you need to do, and it's not for particularly if you're not winning. It's not for the love of it anymore. It's because this is what you know to do.
Yeah.
And you at some point you start to see the end coming. And you're not, and you're not prepared for whatever preparation may mean. That what will you do? Oh, because you play football, you'll be able to go out and you'll do something, and it's not so.
Was it do you think it was the injuries more than the business that cost?
Well, I think it was a combination of all. It was a combination of many things. One, it was a combination of defiance. It was a combination of injuries. Sometimes it was a combination of I was having problems with girlfriends back here in California. I'm 3,000 miles away from home, and it's on the phone. You're arguing, you're hanging up, you're getting upset.
Yeah.
You go to practice the next day, you get angry. So it's a combination. I went to graduate school my first year there, so I was tired that first year because I didn't want to. How should I say it? It was new for me, and I was going to have a lot of time. And so I wanted to go to graduate school that would practice on a college campus. So I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. Yeah. And that was a bit much, what we had to go through. But it's coming. You just don't know when. Some of us, we all think we can call our own shot, and you can't, because if you leave it to us, we'll play as long as we think we're good. We can play. And sometimes you play hurt. You go through things that you shouldn't have to. But I was also almost ready to, Keith. With what I'd gone through, I told Coach Shula, I appreciate the opportunity, but I said, I'm not coming. I'd like to be traded. I don't want to come back to Miami. And supposedly he tried, but I don't think he really tried.
Yeah. Well, by the time you did leave the game,
it was time.
By the time you left, you had some serious injuries that you were dealing with, right?
Yeah, I'd had 6 surgeries. I'd had neck problems. I'd had a knee surgery. So I had a lot of things going on. In the next, in '79, that's when Zunk came back. I had broken ribs, and I'd sit out 3 games, and then my knee was bothering me. But my third year there, I didn't have any problems that were major. Older things. Well, I say they're not a problem, but the normal person might have said, no, I couldn't deal with that. I had some neck issues, and always had those. But I think I could have played another year, maybe 2, if not full time. Maybe coming off the bench. I know. In 1980, Coach Shula benched me for Tony Nathan, and I told him when I got this, I said, look, Coach, if you ever come a point where I'm not doing the job, I want to win. I'll do whatever we need to do. And so when he told me, it only took about 5 minutes. I came to the office, and so it was against the Rams. And the first time I went in like the second quarter, the first time I touched the ball, I went 62 yards. And it was the longest run I'd ever had there in Miami. And down to the 2 yard line. I ended up with 153 yards rushing that day on 12 carries. And so they come to me and say, well, reporters, well, I didn't do anything new. I mean, the holes were there. But we had gone through a transformation with the offensive line to the great line we had my first year. They were getting there, and between Langer and Wayne Moore retired. Jim Langer left after a year or two. Kuchenberg was playing tackle and guard. And so it got to be a change. And but I could have played sparingly, if they wanted me to.
Mm-hmm.
Carrying the ball and taking a beating the way you were taking a 20 plus carries a game, you can't last that long, and you can't come out.
Yeah, and considering what happened afterwards, should you have even wanted to continue to play? Did anybody tell you?
I longed for the game after I was out, because that's all we knew.
Mm-hmm.
That all your friends, is tied to the team, and the teams don't want you there anymore. So now you've got to kind of figure out where you are, and after probably halfway through that year, 49ers won the Super Bowl that year. That was one of my last depressive moments. Is to watch them win the Super Bowl when we didn't get to win it. When we were there. But then from there, I a lot of us were talking about what it takes to transition out, and we started trying to create this program, and actually we did for the United States Football League. We had a substance abuse prevention education program.
What? Yeah, when you retired, I mean, you founded the Athletes Re-Engagement Alliance. What was that all about?
I didn't understand it. Somebody gave me what?
No, when you had gotten out of football, at some point you were the founder of the Athletes.
Oh yeah. No, that was my neighbor. Mm-hmm. The fall when the first year I was out, she was an elementary school teacher. And one day she saw me and she asked me, would I come and speak to her kids? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, oh Jesus, I'm trying to rebound here, and I'm saying, what am I going to tell them? I just got caught. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it, because it got to be a point where it was helpful to be able to regurgitate those experiences, and you learn. And there were some good things you got from it. It weren't all bad. And so I spoke to her class, and she told me I should do this more often. And I had my accountant was very much into the Rotary clubs in the Bay Area. So I'd speak to the Rotaries, and I'd come. And after about 6 months, he said, you should start a nonprofit organization. I said, geez, I don't know anything about a nonprofit organization. I can't ask people for money. And so it became it was my program. It was my re-entry program, if you will, for lack of a better word. It was my self-help program, if you will.
Gotcha.
I also ended up seeing a therapist for many years, which I'm thankful I did. And I think most guys should do that. In fact, digress a little bit here. I think some of the problems that the NFL have had with guys have taken their lives and killing others, I think they've had problems. They have whatever problems that they may have been experiencing, but I believe most of it is depression. And there was no outlet for depression. You couldn't say you were depressed. You couldn't say, those were bad words, depression. Now I don't feel, not having football in my life anymore. I don't feel, for lack of a better word, manly, and it hadn't anything to do about that. It was, for me, it was like something's missing. Something's missing. and I don't think I got to that point, where I was contemplating that type of behavior. But I
Mm-hmm.
knew, but I would eventually find out through this that I was dyslexic. I had ADHD. I had sleep apnea through investigating my behavior and stuff. And that was huge. That was huge for me. And I think, and at that time, no one knew about dyslexia and ADHD, and if you had it, they would think that was an excuse. You're making an excuse for something.
Right.
And it's a very real issue.
When you talk about the depression, you're talking about it from just missing what you had. I mean, a lot of the guys that were former football players that have taken their lives is because of CTE or tied back to CTE and all that. Is that something you feel like you're dealing with now, or yourself?
Well, no. I like to think I'm fine now.
Yeah.
But
Not the
I hear what
depression so
you're saying.
much, but as far as CTE itself. I meant CTE itself. Is that something that?
Well, I've been tested. I've been told that I have it. But there's no investigating by the league. They won't entertain any of the information that's given back to them. But I
Yeah.
think it's more. I think it's more than just CTE. While it's a major issue, don't misunderstand me. But
Yeah.
because we leave the game without medical coverage, we leave the game without any help. We don't know what's wrong with us. And I would believe that if we had insurance, if our workers' compensation benefits were there, you could go see a doctor and at least start investigating what are these feelings, these symptoms you're having. If you can't go into anyone and start talking to them, I mean, I started to see a therapist the year before I left football. And I saw him for 17 years. Would still see him today if he was still alive. Because it gets to a point where it's not the bad behavior, but we bring things with us to this game.
Yeah.
From our childhood, from our years, from our environment, from our parenting, our household. And all of that comes with this. And you never investigated people because you play football, oh, you're fine. You're just shoving it down because you got something to take the place of it. And when it's over, all those things start to surface.
Yeah.
And we're angry at coaches, we're angry at teammates, but it's much deeper than that. And it's very hard for an individual to find that out without going through trials and tribulation that some of them may have been avoided had they known.
So some of this leads us into, in your post career, you've had this battle going on with the NFL for quite some time. Tell us, when did it start? And, give us a little background here on and where you're at now.
Well, well, Keith, it's been 40 years. And
40 years.
Let me try to give you an overview of this. Well, I had 6 surgeries while I was playing, and I had really bad neck issues when I retired, when I was cut.
Right.
But when I was cut, you don't get a thorough physical. You get a 2-hand touch, pat and happy, and send you on, but not a major physical. And so the league has disability programs and plans. And I, naive me, I guess, I'm thinking, oh, well, I got all of the prerequisites for it, so let me get tested. And I go and I get a physical, and I've got all of the percentages, but they're telling me, no, you don't qualify for some reason or another. And so I'm thinking, well, what did I do wrong? And then you go through this. And so I was tested 3 times between 1982 physicals in 1989 and was never given a benefit. And now today, just to backtrack, the workers' compensation of Miami Dolphins, who did not have workers' compensation insurance in the state, now the Miami Dolphins are trying to tell me that in the Department of Industrial Relations, that these things I had back then in the 80s, and I had a certain thing wrong with me. I said, wait a minute. I didn't get benefits back then. So if I had that wrong, then they didn't give me benefits. Now you try to use that to not give me benefits now. And so I didn't. I wasn't paid in 90. And finally in 95, because the laws had changed on certain things, and I was able to get my degenerative benefits from the league. But then I asked for it was retroactive. I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years of $162,000. Well, the league, well, they didn't pay me, and they spent $1.2 million to keep from paying me $162,000. And then they charged me attorney fees. I had to pay them $625 a month for 10 years. and I'm just one player. So there's a lot of guys that leave leave the game and have these illnesses and things are wrong with them, and you just can't find out. You don't know. So now I've been in court. I won a benefit in 18, and they didn't pay me all the money they owed me. Now I got to go back and fight them again. So it's been 18 now, and I just had the trial 2 weeks ago. I couldn't find a lawyer. I had to do it myself.
What was the reason nobody would take the case? Because they wouldn't get paid?
Well, no, they will get paid. They'll
Not
get
by
paid.
you, but
my thinking is that because it's the league, and who knows how many people they do business with. It's something that of not wanting to the word to get out there about what they do. And how they treat people, and then people don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe it, and I think my lawyers screwed me. So I have had a case against them, but I couldn't get a lawyer to defend me against them. So now it's before the court, and I think I feel positive about it, but I don't know. But you're also it's kind of out of your hands. And the reason why I could go forward with it, and I was forced to, is that all of the decisions have been made. They just didn't pay me. So they just didn't pay me. I can at some point I could show you the papers. You wouldn't believe it.
I mean, I don't understand how it happens that you lose. I mean, anybody else, if you lost and owed somebody money, you damn well have to pay it, or somebody come after you.
They're going to come after you. They're going to come after you. Well, they had me pay $75,000 in attorney fees to my retirement board because I asked for my fees, my benefit. So they try and send messages. They try and the states end up paying a bill, carrying a bill that they should pay, and nobody ever says anything.
So they spent $1.6 million or whatever you said to keep from paying you $160,000.
$162,000. Spent I have it in writing. I can show it to you. $1.2 million to keep from paying me $162,000.
So they're thinking there is what? Because if we pay him, they're going to come out of the
Well, the thinking there is that no, I can't think for them. I don't want to. But it would seem to me, well, we can't let somebody win because the others will come back. It's not a fact of winning. They are breaking the law.
Yeah.
They're breaking the law, and nobody holds them accountable. And so if they're breaking the law and people are seeing what they're doing, they probably don't want to deal with it. If some of it's bullying, some of it's intimidation. Now, I don't know how far I would have gotten if I didn't have kept my records. I have all my medical records from 1974 to today. And that is what has helped me keep this going, because they couldn't tell me it didn't happen. And my hope is that I think is that it's in the judge's hands now. Is that the judge, and I have no reason to believe anytime it has gotten to the judge has made the right decision. It's getting it to the judge.
So you've paid all this money for medical expenses out of your pocket since you retired.
Yeah. And when I started the program, I had some money when I retired, but that was going to only last a couple of 3 years. But when I started the program, we had insurance. We found it when we had the nonprofit organization. We ended up with insurance, so I had COBRA, and I could go and get looked at. And then they wanted you to pay the $250 for them to give you the physical, and if you won, then they give it back to you. If you didn't, you lose it. And the Players Association go along with this.
And that was my next question. The thing that, and as I followed you, on Facebook when you make your posts about what goes on. How does the Players Association not stand behind their players in a situation like this? Or there's got to be hundreds or thousands of situations like this.
Well, there are. Well, Gene Upshaw said it best. Gene said he didn't work for us.
Who do you work for? He's
the
head
players,
of Players
the active
Association.
players.
Oh, the active players. Oh, I see. That's
he said,
just
I don't work for
ridiculous.
you. He said, you don't pay me. You don't. And he says, I don't work for you. And that is true. But you would think that everybody that's playing is not going to be playing someday, and that they would you would want to have a stronger relationship. Football, I mean, baseball, basketball, and all these other groups have a great relationship with their with the owners in the union. Everybody but the NFL.
That's amazing.
And the thing about it is that I don't, I don't want. I'm not one to try to go out just bad mouth them, even though I'm treated the way. If they take care of me, I don't care. You try to help other players too.
Yeah.
But if you do this, I mean, they can't expect you to sit quiet with this.
Has any of this, has the NFL changed any of their policies or coverages since you're playing?
Well, I think they're slowly, and it's still all geared towards active players and those that are the first 3 years out of football. See, I think now, and to be honest with you, Keith, I haven't gone back to look at what the comparison.
Fair enough.
I think that their active players get maybe 3 to 5 years of medical benefits, 80-20, when they leave the game, and after that they cut you loose. Well, my surgeries didn't start happening until 15. I was 15 years out of football.
Yeah.
I mean, I from 2001 to 2017, I've had 17 surgeries.
But if your injuries are incurred during your playing career, that's why I don't understand how Gene Upshaw or the league can say, I don't represent you. Yes,
he said that. It was in writing. It was in a newspaper. There was one, I think it was Drew Brees, but, it was one of the active players that says, well, those retired players, they spend all their money on bad investments and they've done this, and then they want us to come and save them. Well,
but you know what? Every generation,
you can argue that.
I got to believe you got to believe the same thing like I do, that every generation of players owes something to the generation before them because they may not be here. You may not be here.
Thank you. Pay it forward, pay it back.
Right.
And I think, I don't know the circumstances about how it got to that point, but I know that once they began to get checkout, meaning they could get their union dues from us without us saying yes or no, because we usually could say no, we don't want to pay it. But when it got to that point, I don't know what happened where they could automatically take it. Then we started to go down the chute.
Crazy.
If I was to show someone my record of what has happened to me physically, what I've gone through, they wouldn't believe it. When I have people today say, no, that didn't happen. Do you blame, if blame's the right word, I guess, the league or the teams more, the league more than the teams, or is it equal? Well, they're all the same.
Yeah.
But I don't really blame them. I blame our union.
Oh, there you go.
Our union are the ones that's supposed to be taking care of us, not the owners. They're doing what you expect them to do. It's screw you. It's just the union that's not sticking up for you. They stand up for the active players. And someone was telling me they know a guy, and I don't know what team it is. He was a 7th round draft choice, and they signed him for $100 million. They gave him a $7 million bonus. 7th round draft choice. And most I made, and like I said, I don't knock them. I mean, get as much as you can. But at my height, I think I made $275.
I was going to say, did you make that kind of money your entire career total, for crying out loud?
No. That was my last year in the league. That's what I made.
And that's my point, that these guys today do, and just like you made more than somebody made before you, everybody's making millions and millions and millions today, something to the guys who came before them. And I don't like to hear
Mm-hmm.
comments like Drew Brees made. That's just wrong.
But
Wrong.
Keith, what you're going to start to hear a lot about, I think, and this is just, I don't know, I have no information that other but intuition, is that this new NIL with kids in college,
Yeah.
giving them money, and now they'll be going from one school to the other and may not even graduate when money is gone. What happens? It
Yeah.
just they should be paid, but it should be some structural payment some way. And even with that, I've said before that they should have athletes that are on a pro track, a track to go turn pro, whatever the sport is. They should take some accounting courses, some legal courses, some courses to help them understand what they're looking at in front of them. Other than putting, you got to take your regular courses, but if you're going to make that kind of adjustment where you're giving them all this money,
Yeah.
and I don't give it to them, but you got to help them, and they got to.
Hmm.
It's anyway.
Well, there's no guidelines. That's the problem, right? I mean,
No, it's not. No, there isn't.
you
No, there
know,
are no guidelines,
when
none whatsoever.
when you combine, and I get into this on some of my shows a lot. When you combine the NIL and the transfer portal and put them together, it's a bad recipe because it could be free
Yes,
agents every year, and
yes.
and they're not learning. Anyway,
And Keith, and they're gonna have people out there trying to scam them out of their money,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
have no idea of what that's gonna look like.
Now, and
And
I'm not saying
promote.
kids. Yeah, I'm not saying college kids should live like paupers. Like you probably had, if you we all heard the stories back in the day where somebody got a flight home for their grandmother's funeral and school goes on probation for it. That's just ridiculous,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, and a lot of that was true. But even when you if you take that out of the equation, you don't have time to do anything else.
Yeah,
But go to school and play football, so you don't have time to learn how to. But if you can catch as you can and give you some basic things, at least to help
yeah,
you understand what kind of person you should pick to
yeah.
help you. The questions you should be able to ask, and the questions you should demand answers to.
Listen, with everything that you've been through, health wise, would you do it all again?
Everybody asks that question. Well, I've had many different thoughts about that, and as we sit here today, and as I talk to you about this, the one thing out of all of that, all of it, is that I did what I dreamed of doing, and you
Mm,
can never replace that. And you can get upset about it if you want. You can do this, but you did what Even when you leave, what else am I going to do? This is what I dreamed of doing. Everything else will be secondary.
yeah,
So you
mm,
could take other things and you'll be fine with it, but you won't feel like you did. And I don't know that I could tell my grandson played. I don't two things. If you're gonna play, you better take insurance. Make sure you have insurance coverage for him.
yeah,
And but I
mm,
don't know that I could tell a grandkid or someone not to and have them hate me the rest of their life because I don't know what would have happened.
yeah,
But if they're smart enough to make decisions and make some money early and get out of it, then okay, because there's there, but still, would I do it again if I knew then what I know now? Probably not. But the fact of living a dream and having some success at it, you can't replace. There's very few people get that opportunity to live what they dreamed of doing, do what they dreamed of, and it comes with a price.
I guess anything worth it does come with some price, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us a little about the book. I see you have it in front of you, and I talked about it on
Yeah, yeah.
the
Well, Keith, when I retired, I'm sitting in that room in my bedroom, just looking at walls, and what do you do now? What do you? I called the league, I called the Players Association, and asked them if they had any programs or anything. And believe it or not, then I thought about, is there a book or something you can read? And there was nothing, nada. And of course I'd had some long nights, before, but all of that was trying to some was medicinal, some was trying to just drown out emotions and things that you had no feeling about, but you wanted something different. But where do you go? So when my neighbor asked me this, and I always thought that there should be something for athletes, accounting and have lawyers, and so it was always in my mind. And this was an opportunity to try this. And we had summer camps where we would put kids in the classroom half the day and on the field for half a day, and we'd have speakers come in and talk to them. And we at one point, and I still have it, we developed a curriculum. It was paid for by the State Department of Education in California, that we were teaching classes in schools. We had one class where we sent an athlete in, and I would go and do an assembly, or have other athletes do an assembly. Then we would be assigned to a class. We'd assign an athlete to a class that they teach the 6-week curriculum once a week for 6 weeks on what it took to succeed. Game plan, goal setting, physical preparation, mental preparation, diets, and all of those things in a succession. That the same thing it took us to succeed, you have to use that in your daily life, and without substances, and without being distracted, bullies, and all those types of things. While you find help with those things, and we had an independent evaluator, and it worked. They had to tweak it some, but because of politics, and I just got tired. I mean, I dealt with it in football, and dealt with it here, and it just. And then I worked at United Way. I worked for a Chamber of Commerce in San Francisco, and I finally went back and tried again. And this was 1995, since '81, and received my benefits only because something had changed. And you can't work. You can't do this. You can't do that. You had to go back every year and get a physical to make sure you hadn't gotten it. So it was but I am, and here's the other kicker, that I am thankful that I fought for it and I got it, because I've been able to live a better quality of life because of it. Because of all these issues I have, having surgery, what would you do? What if you couldn't take care of yourself? You had to work and have surgeries.
Yeah.
So this is the good news about this benefit, that people that they don't really care, that they're not helping assisting guys with it, and they just don't care.
Amazing story. It's an amazing story, Delvin, and everybody get Delvin's book. I'll promote it on the my page and website for sure. The fifth ward to the fourth quarter.
I really appreciate it. I've been dealing with this legal stuff, and so I haven't been able to get out there, but I'm looking for a sponsor that can sponsor the book for high school age kids, and I'll go and speak to them and talk about it. I think they should have a book in the library in the schools.
Yeah.
And a teacher should have them write essays on it. And I can come in and talk to them, answer questions, because it's easier if you come in when they have some idea about what you're going to talk about, to make points about things and have more poignant questions. So that's what my hope is for it.
Well, it's a good hope, because you've got a great story to tell. You reached some great heights. You reached great goals, and it's a cautionary tale all at the same time. And I'm glad that you were with us today, and we got to talk about it, Delvin. And I hope we get to chat again. And I'll do my part to push your book the little bit that I can.
Well, Keith, I really appreciate it, and have me back anytime you want. Next time I'll tell you about my trip to the White House.
Absolutely. We want to get into that for sure. Delvin, stay with me. I want to say a proper goodbye to you. Once I wrap up, I'm going to take you out, and I'll catch you in just 1 minute.
Okay. I'll be right here. Okay, great. Okay.
Great, Delvin Williams. What a great story. I'm in all frankness, because I haven't got a chance to read his book. I was waiting for it in Kindle, and we haven't had it, but he said it may be hitting that soon. It's a wonderful story. As I said, a man who reached great heights, reached some remarkable goals, and it's a cautionary tale all at the same time. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we're going to wish Delvin well, and hope he keeps us abreast of his continued battle with the NFL. Multi-billion-dollar corporations should not be treating individuals who helped them get to this point the way that Delvin and many others, I'm sure, are being treated. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. Guys, thanks for joining me today. Keith Engle for TGI Sports Talk, one-on-one with Delvin Williams. Guys, we'll see you next time. Have a great night.